Welcome to another biblically based look into today's news from Christian Voice New Zealand. Now here's Mike Bain.
Hi, I'm Mike Bain from Christian Voice New Zealand. You know, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern travelled to New York with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. And then she chaired a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron about the Christchurch call. Now, I don't know about you, but I always get an uneasy feeling every time these three students of the founder of the World Economic Forum's Klaus Schwab come together. You know, nothing good for you and I is going to come from it. And how right I am as Ardern and Macron announced their intention to restrict a person's right to free speech under the guise of the Christchurch call. Now, in theory, it's good them wanting to do something to stop people being influenced by extremists. However, what they're proposing is an overreach of their office in an effort to restrict our rights to free speech when they announce funding for new research into how algorithms affect people's online experience. Now, while it all sounds innocent, it's not. Call it what you'd like, but it's what it is. It's censorship. Ardern likens free speech on social media to a weapon of war. Imagine it, if the government monitors your online activity like how Google and Facebook do now for marketing products. Now, I don't mind algorithms being used to direct annoying products to me, well, sometimes, that I may be interested in, but we must be able to freely discuss issues online about censorship. Ardern said most of the content people encounter and view online is curated by algorithms in some form, and it can lead people into extremism. As I said, all good in theory, and I'm right behind anything which will stop acts of terrorism, but the but is how this research can be used for other things. Let me give you some thoughts. Let me start by saying everyone wants the truth, but nobody wants to be honest. Currently in New Zealand, we've heard Ardern lash out at disinformation and call for a global coalition to control speech. But after giving a nod towards free speech, she proceeded to lay out a plan for its demise through government regulation. Ardern noted how extremists will use speech to spread lies without noting non-extremists use the same free speech to counter such a view. While putting aside the people opposed to mandates and vaccinations, one of Ardern's big things is climate change, and she's now tackling opposition from people who simply don't accept it exists. And the question she has is how to convince people who use the freedom of speech to oppose it. Well, since her speech in New York, the world is waking up to Ardern. All her platitudes of being kind, she's now seen as the smiling face of censorship. Like she acted with those who were in opposition to the COVID mandates. She wants to shut those who have doubts about climate change down. As I mentioned earlier, when the students of Klaus Schwab come together, you can sense the agenda being driven by the World Economic Forum, with a censorship looming as an agenda item. But Ardern and Macron must only look at the new social media law, which will be enacted in the state of California in the new year. This law is being marketed to the public to protect Californians from inline hate, disinformation, harassment and extreme opinions. But the unanswered question that remains is, what are extreme opinions? What is disinformation? When this law is enacted next year, it'll forever alter the course of American ideologies. Henceforth, social media companies, businesses, schools and other community sites that put forth such platforms will be severely monitored, and in a first of kind, clearly, the new law directly violates America's old age First Amendment rights of the American Constitution regarding freedom of speech. And it's being promoted as a wonderful idea that will protect children in vulnerable communities. Sadly, this new law won't extend to persecute against vile, foul, sexually explicit speech or online advertisements of acts and opinions contradictory to the Bible and or remarks that contradict traditional morals, values and ethics that affect us all. Nor will the new law prohibit violence and sexuality as in Hollywood motion pictures and television and video games. No, these worldly pandemics that truly offend, hurt, destroy and pollute the mind will remain perfectly permissible, and they're not in any way affected by the new law said to protect us. Under closer inspection, it becomes apparent that the new Californian law will not protect children, nor adults for that matter, because smut is not being banned from the internet, regardless of age-appropriate guidelines. Any company or persons using social media to express opinions that explicitly contradict those established as agreeable by local and national governing bodies will be liable for permanent censorship, fines and/or potential prosecution. But the unanswered question that remains is, define extreme opinions. Who sets the bar and enforces it? What is disinformation? Well, in New Zealand, it's anyone who disagrees with the Prime Minister. Just watch, she'll refute the comment. Both disinformation and extreme opinions are undeniably tumultuous, albeit virtually impossible to specify. Perhaps a simple definition of the new law should read, you better not write, endorse or even mention anything that goes against the status quo, such as anything that contradicts woke, abortion rights, women's rights, black rights, Hispanic rights, rapper rights, mental illness or the LGBTQ+ beliefs, or anything of the sort that is in defiance of God's law. If you do, your social media rights will be terminated and you'll be fined or prosecuted, fired and or your business shut down. Well, could this happen here in New Zealand? Well, yes, it can. And it's already happening with the Disinformation Ministry running point for the government during the COVID crisis. Ardern, in her New York speech, noted how extremists use speech to spread lies without noting that the non-extremists use the same free speech to counter such views. Now, to answer her question on how do you tackle climate change if people don't believe it exists, is that you convince people using the same free speech. Instead, Ardern appears to want to silence those who have doubts. Well, won't this only inflame the already towering inferno of troubles in New Zealand, possibly California, if not the world? Will the social monitoring team promote a modern-day witch hunt and function as tattletales that will persecute whomever or whatever is deemed to go against the government's beliefs? The new law further supports the notion that Bible believers have no rights to practice or renounce their beliefs. It's a pity that the law does not seek to reprimand and silence the true perpetuators of vile and negative social content, and I'm talking about media and entertainment companies. What is deeply concerning about the new California social media law and the Christchurch call is that certain stipulations within it are undefined. They might never be defined, and that, in fact, could be utilised to suit whoever is in charge at that time. This law is the opening door to subtly creep in censoring Bible-believing Christians under the guise of protecting children. Well, sadly, those who uphold God's laws and traditional moral values have been and will further be demonised and associated with true extremists who vehemently oppose God's law when the state law takes effect. Just keep in mind Jesus' words, which are recorded in Matthew 10:22, and you'll be hated by all for my name's sake, but he who endures to the end will be saved. Well, in a time of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. So yes, the world has an issue over disinformation. Believe me, Christianity has also suffered with this through the centuries. We've already seen how by speaking biblical truth you can be cancelled. Just think about Israel Folau for a minute. Jacinda Ardern is right. Free speech is a weapon in war when the truth is being told. But she's failed to deliver on a call for an end to hate speech in this country, and now collectively with the WEF, she wants to censor the world. As Christians, we've been waiting for such a time as this, when people will not accept the truth contained in the Bible. But rest assured, when it comes to biblical truth, we have the Bible, and I quote 2 Timothy, where Paul encapsulated it with these words, all scripture is God-breathed and useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting and training in righteousness. However, if you've been a follower of Jesus Christ, you'll understand the time in which we live in. Remember the stories whereby some countries and people had to meet in secret, or they only had one page of the Bible which they treasured. Our days of free speech are numbered in this country as a secular world led by Jacinda Ardern and Emmanuel Macron usher in the agenda of the Great Reset, authored and promoted by the World Economic Forum. But that doesn't mean we should give up. We must, as Christians, followers of Jesus Christ, push back against this impending darkness for one reason and one reason only. John 8, Jesus told his disciples the truth would set them free. Let's not forget his answer to Thomas. In John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way and the truth and the life. Bible truth doesn't sit well with the agenda of Satan's world, and that's why you're being encouraged to be both the salt and the light in this darkening nation.
Thank you for watching. Help us to spread this message by sharing it within your own network. If you want to see more messages like this one, simply hit the subscribe button. For more information about our work, or if you're moved to donate the price of a cup of coffee, jump online to our website, christianvoicenewzealand.com.